Good evening all. My name is Olaf, and it really is a pleasure to be here tonight talking to you guys about, I guess, the coming together of additive manufacturing and Industry 4.0. And maybe just to start you off with a bit of background of where I work for the Creative Design and Additive Manufacturing Lab, which I describe as a playground where companies can come and learn about the technology and basically play with the toys. Because a lot of my role is educating companies on how to use this expensive technology to add enough value to what they're doing to make it worthwhile. So that's what I'm about. Now, I do have a background in mechatronics and robotics, but it was sort of before the days of Industry 4.0. So I confess I'm coming to Industry 4.0 from an ignorant perspective, but hopefully that'll provoke a bit of thoughts amongst you, and really wondering about, what Industry 4.0 and what it's about. And particularly over the last 3, 4, 5 years, a lot of talk about Industry 4.0. And in my personal opinion, often people are talking about iPhones and apps and widgets, and they almost forget about the manufacturing side. And to my mind, if you've got all these widgets, well, if you're making them the same way you've been making them for 100 years, well, is that really proper Industry 4.0? And you need to be bringing this modern manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. I will talk about additive, but I mean all manufacturing in general to it to make it worthwhile, to make it truly Industry 4.0. And my slides are not quite moving ahead. So yeah. The difference between old-fashioned automation. Just one slide on what Industry 4.0 is about, or questions about what it's about. You talk about things like automation, robotics, personalized manufacturing. I mean, those have all been around for 1 million plus years. You order a car, that's personalized manufacturing. You order the color you want, the mags you want, the hi-fi you want. That's all been around forever. So is that Industry 4.0? The same thing, network devices, the cloud. We've been storing data on network farms forever. Yet suddenly a few years ago, somebody comes up with the word the cloud, and everything changes. Has it really changed? So I'm questioning, is this Industry 4.0 or not, or is it all of the above? And probably, in my opinion, the big difference between everything on the left side and Industry 4.0 is that, to me, Industry 4.0 is data-driven. You use data, preferably big data, to automatically make decisions about what is going on in your life, in your manufacturing, and so on. If it's not using data to make decisions for you, well, then it possibly is the older-fashioned automation and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, this is the Warren Bennis quote, where the factory of the future will have 2 employees, a man and a dog, and the man's there to feed the dog, and the dog's there to stop the man from touching the equipment. So somebody who's worrying about robots taking over your job. To me, is that what Industry 4.0 is about? Is, the factory of the future being using artificial intelligence in different ways. So that leads us on to additive manufacturing, which has already also been around for 30 plus years. And just a couple of bullet points on what it's about, or what makes it different from conventional manufacturing. It is really good at making complex parts, or geometrically complex parts that you could not make any other way, and with no need for tooling. That means if you have an idea for a product, conventionally you're going to have to spend $10,000, $20,000, $100,000, $500,000 tooling up to get it to market. With additive manufacturing, it removes that tooling cost. So you can go to market with zero startup cost, well, not zero, little startup cost compared to with conventional manufacturing. You can make components that are substantially lighter than the old-fashioned way. When I say substantially lighter, easily 30% lighter. Typically 60 to 90% lighter. That means if you've got to ship them around the world, again, you add value by doing that. So additive manufacturing, if we're making components, let's say glasses for everybody in this room, with conventional manufacturing, they all have to be the same. You've got one set of frames to choose from, or maybe 10. With additive, every set of frames can be entirely different, and it doesn't make any difference to the cost. So mass manufacturing, or mass customization, is what we're talking about. And decentralized manufacturing. So I thought I'd just give you a few slides with a few examples of what I'm talking about, because it makes it easier to understand. So these were Taylor Gray, one of our students at University of Auckland, who 2 years ago did this as his fourth-year project. He's an avid mountain biker, and he created these topology optimized, these lightweight brake calipers for mountain bikes that weigh 45% less than the equivalent machine component. Now they cost about $300-400 to print. The conventional ones cost about $200-250 to print for high quality stuff. But that's a minor cost. People spend crazy money on mountain bikes. I mean, stupid money. So to spend an extra $50 to save those grams, which is the difference between winning and losing a race, makes it a high enough value proposition that it is worthwhile doing. So that's one example of that sort of that lightweight manufacturing. I talked earlier about the ability to get products to market with no tooling at all. This was something, and I've actually got one of them over here. This was something we did with St. John Ambulance and also with an ambulance company in France. So ambulance drivers, when they carry drugs, they have a foam pouch on their belt with all their bottles of whatever drugs they carry in there. And every once in a while they break a vial because the foam doesn't offer all that good protection. And then they've got to do 3 days of paperwork explaining where the drugs have disappeared to. So it's the paperwork that's a problem rather than losing the drugs. So they came to us and said, look, we want to design a heavy-duty drug pouch, and I'll just grab it from over here. So it's a little 3D printed drug pouch. So within a time span of 3 weeks, we did 7 design iterations. We started off with this one over here with 5 vials. We gave it to them. The next day they said, oh, it's not enough vials. We need 7 vials and 9 vials. So it kept growing in their different size vials. But being able to go through 7 different design iterations in 3 weeks and then produce 100 products for them to trial. Now, to produce 100 products any other way is basically impossible, or would cost a lot of money to get there. So this is, again, where you're adding value by being able to go to market very, very quickly without a great cost. So currently those 100 ones are being trialed. If they work, they may need another 200, so 300 in total for New Zealand. Again, you couldn't manufacture that any practical way, any other way. And we've dropped this quite a few times with, there's ketamine and adrenaline in there, and they haven't broken so far. So far, so good. We've been lucky.
So would that be more eco-friendly, less waste?
Yes, in the sense that if they're well designed, they will last forever. Now, I've got to put that in quotes because, but well-designed products are more eco-friendly because people use them for longer. Disposable products are less eco-friendly, and the soft pouches, they break, they tear, so they do dispose of them quite a bit. But I wouldn't swear on that on my life. It really depends on the application. We talked about mass customization. Now, medical is the big area for that. Our bodies are all different, so anything that needs to fit in our bodies or against our bodies benefits from additive manufacturing because you can make them all differently. Hearing aids, 96% of inner ear hearing aids are 3D printed today. Most of us don't know. We don't care how they're made. We just care that they fit us perfectly. Invisalign dental aligners, so the new way of lining up your teeth instead of the railroad track going down your mouth. Smile Direct have been advertising on New Zealand as well. Now, again, take it with a grain of salt. It's not entirely 3D printed. They 3D print models of your teeth and vacuum form over that, then CNC machine around. So it's true modern manufacturing using the right technology. And I thought I'll give you one more example of that from COVID. Wrong mouse button, yes. Application called Bellis 3D. It's an iPhone app where you take your iPhone, hold the app, look left, look right, and it generates a 3D model of your face. And down the bottom right, you see a little mask filter button. So this was to do with all the cloth masks that we were wearing that didn't seal properly. And this automatically prints you out. We'll come back. This automatically prints you out a little frame. I'm doing well here.
Well done.
You can print them later.
I'll put them sideways. So it prints you out a little frame that fits your face perfectly and seals the mask against your face the right way. So really nice example of mass customization. And you can print these out on little desktop printers at home. And the last example is we talked about the supply chain, distributed manufacturing. Before the Industrial Revolution, this was a supply chain. If I was a maker of chairs, well, I was the supply chain. Claire may have been the blacksmith, and we trade some eggs, and then you guys as the village are my market, the village on the other side of the hill too far. You compare that to the supply chain today. I'll drive to Target to buy my chair. They get it shipped in from Tauranga, then that comes in from Guangzhou in China. That supply chain is phenomenally large and expensive. And typically consumer products, less than 10% of the cost of the product is the product. The other 90% is that phenomenal supply chain. The transport, every one of these guys wants 5%, 10%, 30% to make their margins. So imagine in the future being able to go back to that pre-industrial revolution supply chain and being able to go back to manufacturing parts where they're needed, when they need it. So I walk into Target with my memory stick with my chair design on it. Please, can you print me a chair? Go have a cup of coffee, come back, and my chair is done. Now, the technology is not there to do that yet, but that is the dream. But one area of growth in this is spare parts. companies keep billions of dollars of spare parts on shelves. I did a lot of work for Tetra Pak in Sweden. In Lund, they have a warehouse with 800,000 unique spare parts sitting on shelves doing nothing useful. Legally, they have to keep them for 20 years. And they quite freely admit that at the end of the 20 years, around 70% of the components get scrapped. But they legally, some components, seals, gaskets, they send out all the time. Others never get needed, but they need it. So imagine no longer needing to have all those components and having a digital inventory, making the parts where you need them, when you need them. So you don't ship them around the world, you ship a digital file around the world and make them where they're needed. So as I said, this is stuff that is coming. It started, a lot of companies have expressed interest in this whole idea of making digital spare parts. But to bring it back, I guess, to additive manufacturing and Industry 4.0, how the two tie back together. And I thought I'd illustrate this with an example. We're doing a lot of work with prosthetics. And in fact, on the table there, and this little girl here missing the bottom half of her arm, wearing a 3D printed prosthetic. Now, this is not an intelligent prosthetic. There is one with myoelectric implants to control a bionic hand, but one problem with prosthetic, particularly lower limb prosthetics, during the day your limb can swell or contract by as much as 20%. So they have to continuously tighten and loosen the straps to keep the prosthetic on tight. And there's always a problem, particularly again with lower limb prosthetics, of pressure ulcers, where there's too much pressure and it becomes sore and infected. So this is a problem that can partially be solved by Industry 4.0, by additive manufacturing, by being able to make compliant prosthetics. So basically spring-loaded prosthetics that will automatically change size during the day as your limb swells and contract, but it's not really taking advantage of electronics. So I guess the dream of the advanced prosthetic of tomorrow is the whole prosthetics embedded with sensors measuring temperature, pressure, gait, accelerometers to measuring what you're doing with it. All that data gets uploaded to the cloud, and not just from one person, but these are all the lower limb prosthetic wearers around the world. You get all this data coming through saying, when are they getting these pressure ulcers? Is it because they're climbing stairs, or whatever the scenario is? But from this data, you try to mine what's causing these. From that mined data, you now redesign the prosthetic and automatically redesign. You've got software taking that data saying, in this situation, something occurs, let's automatically change the design, print a batch of them for 100 people overnight in the countries they're at, send them out to them. So as I said, this is, to my mind, the dream of what Industry 4.0 in the context of additive manufacturing is. And additive manufacturing adds value because it's one of the few technologies that can actually do what the dream wants us to do with it. So yeah, are we there yet? The short answer is no, not quite yet. I mean, additive manufacturing is still an expensive technology. It's slow, therefore expensive. So you've got to use it for the right reasons. We need automated systems. So I was talking to people earlier, right now, if 3 of us print 3 parts, we're all going to get different results because the machines are entirely stupid and they depend on the user to decide what way to print the part, orientation, material, everything. We need software that automatically decides the application. Based on that application, it does everything automatic and guarantees consistency and quality depending on what it is we're after. So we've started working on some manual systems doing that. We now need to automate that, bring that back into the CAD to automatically do the redesign for us. And post-processing as well. I mean, the work you do after the part is printed, you do not get iPhone quality parts off the printer. You've got to do a lot of elbow grease to get it to that level. Again, automating that through robotic systems, advanced robotics, a bit of artificial intelligence saying which parts need to be advanced in what way. So really, we're not that far away. Is it another year, another 2 years? Certainly in the next 5 years, I think these issues will resolve themselves in quite a nice way. And maybe just to finish off, really, I guess a bit of advertising, really. I mean, I've bought a bunch of eye candy over there for those of you who are not familiar with the more advanced 3D printing products out there. But we've now, in particular, just got a new full color 3D printer. So if any of you guys have got an interest in 3D printing in color, that is the kind of stuff you can do where you can print in full color. Wow. This face will actually open facial recognition on not iPhones, but on Android phones. It will work. The iPhone, so you will notice on the table here, I've got some printed eyeballs. The reason for that is the iPhone needs you to pay attention. So the next step is to carve out the eyes and putting mobile eyes in it to see if we can, so the plan is we want to see if we can fool the iPhone into opening from a printed face to see if it does it the right way. So yeah, work in progress, watch this space. But if any of you guys have got an interest, open invitation to come by the lab. We've got an open week during Tech Week in May. There's flyers on the tables, look at those. And I think that's pretty much it from me, other than that I look forward to seeing what Paul and Robert have to say, to educate me a bit, but to tell me that manufacturing is part of Industry 4.0, I hope. So thank you very much.